Wizards of the Coast is the worst company in all of nerd culture. Say what you will about Disney, say what you will about Ubisoft. No, the end-all, be-all, most disastrous thing to happen to mainstream nerd culture is Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast. Welcome back to Words of Paradise. I'm your host, Leon Idle. And yeah, if you hadn't heard, Wizards of the Coast designer who authored the Dungeons & Dragons, the making of original D&D, writes off fans unhappy with books insulting of games creators. I consider those people not worth listening to. This is a thing that happened. You want to know how I know it's a thing that happened? Because I actually talked about this back in July, and frankly, the video didn't do super hot. Only got a few hundred views. Not exactly my best moment, my best, most shining hour, considering what my videos are used to doing, but whatever. Niche subject. However, it's been brought back to the spotlight because people have been throwing a fit about it. Understandably so, they should be, when you throw people like Gary Gygax, the man that invented and gave us this glorious, beautiful game, under the bus. Because imagine, if you will, let's take a moment, let's remove Dungeons & Dragons from us. Let's say you're somebody that does not care about D&D, or Magic the Gathering, or Hasbro, or WotC, or any of these esoteric, nerdy, fantasy-filled adventure games. Let's take it to something like Marvel. Imagine if there was a history of Marvel book authored, and they spent the time trashing Stan Lee, trashing Steve Ditko, and then when fans got upset about it, saying, "We don't care, you fans aren't even worth concerning ourselves with." What about Star Wars? If they did a history of Star Wars book, the history of the cinema and what Star Wars meant to the community, and they spent that time trashing, absolutely trashing George Lucas, the fans would be pissed. Real fans would be pissed. But they turned around and said, "Oh, whatever, we're not concerned about those fans. We care about our new modern Disney fans." People would be a little bit upsetty spaghetti. So we're going to get into this article before we do hit that subscribe button. I'm a nerdy news channel. I cover nerdy news. I usually say every day, but I've actually been out of the game for a while. So if anything's going to bring me back in, it is in fact this. Because for those of you that don't know, I sort of got my start as a D&D and Magic the Gathering oriented channel. Mostly for hating on Wizards of the Coast and their dumbass decisions like these right here. Also, mad props to my boy Spencer. Thank you so much for the article. Great work as always, my friend. And the latest example of those in charge of a classic nerd hobby proclaiming themselves to be better than its longtime fans, Wizards of the Coast designer Jason Tondro has admitted that when writing Dungeons & Dragons, the making of original D&D, he did not care that readers may disagree with the book's denigration of the game's original creators, because simply put, he considers anyone who would get upset about it to be not worth listening to. This is the magic of modern day Wizards of the Coast. These companies do not care about you. They do not care about the longtime fans. They do not care about the people that have financially supported them for quite literal decades at this point, so long as they can get their new, young, hip, diverse group, the same hip, diverse group that doesn't actually buy anything, by the way. They don't come in and actually spend the money. No, maybe they download the PDFs on the internet, or maybe they go play at their buddy's house, their buddy who was a longtime friend and has fallen down the rabbit hole of, leftist social Marxist propaganda, and hangs out with these freaks and losers who already has all the figures and all the maps and all the books and can deem a game for them. Or maybe they don't even buy it. Maybe they call themselves D&D fans, but their only exposure has been Baldur's Gate 3. Great game, don't get me wrong, I appreciate it, but let's be real, you're not a D&D fan if your only exposure is Baldur's Gate 3. In fact, these sorts of fans aren't even the ones buying your goddamn book, because these people don't care about the past. They don't care about Gary Gygax and what he did and what he created, he and his friends. They don't care about TSR. It is actually insane that if you're going to write a book about the making of original D&D, and you're going to cater it for these new fans that don't even care about the property, you sick, slimy scumbag? As previously reported in this book, Tondro spends a decent amount of the book's text going out of his way to apologize for the fact that the original version of the game was not sufficiently progressive by modern standards, and doing so, suggesting its content creators were inherently bigoted themselves.
It's stupid! You're stupid! Stop being stupid!
Yes, Gary Gygax, such a bigot, a father of two, someone who absolutely enjoyed having women at his table, who people always throw out these sort of out-of-context quotes of, "Oh, Gary Gygax said he didn't like women playing at his table." No, what he said was that he has played plenty of games with women, and they don't usually find themselves getting very invested, and you know what? That's fair. For a long, long time, D&D was not exactly something that a lot of women flocked towards, not because of any inherent sexism there, it's just not something that the female brain typically was geared towards. Just like how a lot of dudes probably aren't going to see Wicked, which is fine. I get it. I'm the outlier that likes musicals. Most dudes aren't wired to that sort of thing. You're always going to have your exceptions to the rule, but D&D, until very recently, was very male-dominated. By the way, what's happened recently? It's been changed to the point where it's not D&D anymore. It's not the same game. It's not even the same world or rules, really, at this point. So yes, of course men aren't finding themselves being gravitated towards it, because it's not what it used to be. They have fundamentally changed it. It's quite literally the MCU of fantasy. In this one instance, Tondro writes, "Note the rules of the fantastic medieval wargame campaigns that make up original D&D were created by and sold to a wargaming community that was almost exclusively white middle-class men." Here's the actual quote, mind you. "The rules compiled here offer little by way of roles for the players, nor indeed for anyone who wouldn't easily identify with a pulp sword and sorcery hero," said the designer. Now, that is true. You wanna know why? Because when D&D originally debuted, again, we talking back in 74, give or take, there was much less emphasis on the role play part of it. It truly was just a war game, but with a fantasy setting. You weren't actually, now I'm sure some people did get into the characters and you were able to make your character sheet, things to that effect, but the role play, it was pretty lacking, which is why they would continue to have editions, D&D second edition, AD&D, these expansions that built on what the games, laid the groundwork for. Which is fine, because it was still D&D. Especially before 1974, the rules made light of slavery, in addition to including other harmful comments. Go fuck yourself. It never made light of slavery. You wanna know how we know it didn't make light of slavery? Because go play some of those old modules. Go read some of those old stories from the Greyhawk era. The slavers were never the good guys. They weren't sitting there, oh, slavery. No, you were always the partying adventure going to massacre the slavers. It was your job. You were being paid by the good townsfolk or farms people or whatever it may be to annihilate the slavers and what they've been doing to their local communities, taking their women and children and selling them into these hardships. Yeah, it didn't make light of slavery. That is absolute mental retardation and tomfuckery, and you should feel ashamed of yourself for the outright blatant lies about the history, again, of this great game and this great man. You slimy, dumb, spineless dick. Later on, Tondro further warns readers, some language in the first iteration of D&D presents a moral quandary. The documents reproduced in this book include many pages of charts and tables alongside lists of monsters, spells, and magic items, but the game content also includes a virtual catalog of insensitive and derogatory language, words that are casually hurtful to anyone with a physical or mental disability, or who happen to be old, fat, not conventionally attractive, indigenous, black, or a woman. Let's start off with the obvious. Old, fat, and not conventionally attractive. Kinda the target fucking demographic of Dungeons and Dragons. You can't all be young, virile studs like your boy here playing the game. We're kinda the exception to the rule. As far as indigenous, black, or a woman, let me tell you, I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons for about 17 years, give or take. And, while women have until recently been pretty lacking, I won't lie, I played with a host of black dudes, never really had any issues finding black folk to play D&D. Let me tell you, by the way, 9 times out of 10 when I was playing with them and they were making their characters, I actually didn't know if their characters were black or not. They really didn't make a big fucking deal about it. In fact, a lot of the times they would play as non-human characters. They were orcs, or maybe that's a bad example, but they were also halflings, or gnomes, or dwarves. So, clearly, it didn't really matter if you're black or a woman, because people didn't think about that shit. It was always about the escapism. You are absolutely projecting, you disgusting waste of human life force. Some people have charitably ascribed this language to authors working from bad assumptions, he continues. In the 1970s, historical wargamers in America were predominantly white middle-class men. It isn't surprising they would dub a class of soldiers the fighting man. Yes! There's nothing wrong with calling the class the fighting man, because again, when you are making your character, you could be a woman. It's not like you were locked into being a man. By the way, man as in maybe mankind, or again, maybe they said man because of simplicity's sake, the same way that we call things king and queen in chess. It's just a fucking title. You're not actually controlling a little king or a little queen. They're not men. They're not real. They're fucking game pieces. It is quite literally insane the way they go out of their way to destroy the history of Dungeons and Dragons, because that's what these people are obsessed with. They think that they can make everything better, new, improved, that they are the bastions, they're the creative forces, that they can do anything and everything that Gary and his crew could have done back in the day, but they can do it to a more amazing and immersive sense of realism, when first of all, we don't want realism, and second of all you're doing is aping their greatness and repackaging it to sell to a bunch of freaks that have gotten their cocks cut off at 12 years old, because transgenderism is the hot new thing, because leftism is a fucking fad right now, a fad that's being rejected, by the way, considering Donald Trump won the popular vote. So all these individuals that are throwing a fit about this, probably rightfully so, to quote some certain Star Wars freaks, turns out there's more of us, but no, you can't fathom that. I truly mean it when I say the Wizards of the Coast is actually worse than Disney, because Wizards of the Coast, Disney, maybe, slowly but surely, learning when there's a problem with their output. I mean, Moana 2 seems to be doing pretty well at the box office, and I haven't heard anything about any sort of homoerotic, shenanigans in that film. I saw Inside Out 2. Inside Out 2 was the furthest thing from woke, and guess what? Inside Out 2, actually a pretty banger movie. Probably the best Disney movie since, I shit you not, Tangled. When was Tangled, by the way? Like 2013? So yeah, Disney might slowly be learning. That doesn't mean we should be fans or give them the benefit of the doubt or go to the movies. God, no. I still say boycott Disney, cancel Disney Plus, the whole nine. However, compare them to Wizards of the Coast, which are now double, tripling, and quad goddamn droopling down when it comes to things like this. Yeah, it's a little bit of a problem. Or what about this right here? Were players expected to fight Vishnu, one of the principal deities of Hinduism, kill him and loot his +3 sword at demon slaying? You good goddamn right they were. Why is that a problem exactly? Is that a problem because Vishnu is a god for, I don't know, the brown people that must be protected by your white savior ass? Because let me tell you, I played many a JRPG, Japanese role-playing game. I'm a bit of a fan. Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, you name it, Dragon's Dogma. How many of those, Persona 5, do you fucking kill God at the end? Also, I guarantee you, if one of the characters here, instead of Vishnu, it would have been the Christian god that you killed and looted his +3 magical sword. Yeah, I doubt you'd have an issue with that because, that's a mainstream white man religion. It doesn't matter. In fact, we would rather you do that. We would cheer you on if you were slaying Jehovah or Yahweh or whatever you want to call him. But, Vishnu is the god of a protected class. You can't in good conscience think that these dark-skinned individuals could have any sense of self-awareness to protect themselves. So yeah, we're playing video games and tabletop games where you do have to kill gods. And you know what? We can separate fantasy from reality, fact from fiction. We know it's a game, we know it's a joke. And again, flip the script and I guarantee you wouldn't give a good goddamn if it was the actual Christian god, you piece of shit. Releasing to store shelves in July, and by the way, when I say July, that's how I told you I'd cover this before, and I covered it back then, but again, it's worth getting upset about because, as I'm sure you know, Elon Musk brought this up. He asked, honestly, probably facetiously, probably cheekily, how much is Hasbro? And while I don't know if Elon actually cares about D&D, though it wouldn't surprise me, the guy was a programmer for Sega when he was 15 years old. He's got his nerd cred. He's kind of the #1 Diablo player. How long was his profile picture? Edward Elric from the classic FMA anime. To be fair, Elon's nerd cred isn't actually in question. Now, I don't know that I want Elon to buy Hasbro. I don't know that I want the dude to buy too much more else just because I don't like the idea of that much power being in one man's hand. But I also don't really see an alternative considering that Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast they're dead. There's no saving them with the current management, with the current ownership. And while I get he was probably being facetious and joking, something does need to happen. I mean, this video is not going to change anything. Maybe it'll get a few more you guys riled up. Maybe I'll have introduced you to a problem you didn't know existed, and you think, wow, goddamn, that's really interesting, and give you something to think on. But this isn't going to change any of the higher-ups at Wizards of the Coast / Hasbro. No, they feed on the fact that we aren't in this anymore. Again, they don't think of us. He goes out of his way to quite literally say, let me see if I can find the quote here. Despite these shortcomings, D&D has always been a game about people choosing to be someone unlike themselves and collaborating with strangers who become friends. Yeah, you're right. It's always been like that. You say that that's what it's always been. So what are you trying to change again? How are you trying to change it? Out of curiosity, what actually have you done that the original D&D didn't already do, and what haven't you made worse? I didn't write the preface until late, and I wrote it to address these concerns, he revealed in the conclusion post. It never occurred to me that I roused the ire of the grognards. Now again, I know I didn't put the text up on screen, because I really was just looking for that grognards part. For those who don't know, a grognard is an old school player. Now I've been playing, like I said, for 17 years. I don't exactly consider myself a grognard, because grognard's been playing since the 70s, but the fact that he would use grognard as a derogatory derogatory term, as a pejorative, when frankly every grognard that I know is proud of it, and now you want to take that from them. You want to take these old heads that were so proud of the fact that they were losers in the 70s playing D&D, because let's be real, ain't nobody, you want to know why D&D is popular now? You want to know why D&D is cool now? It's not because of your homo-ass rebranding. It's not because you put in combat wheelchairs. It's not because every single other fucking side character is gay now. It's not because you got black trans women of color who are able to cast spells, although they can't cast spells that will heal people from their fucking wheelchair. No, you want to know why Dungeons & Dragons is popular now? Because of Stranger fucking Things. You owe your revival and your rebranding and the fact that you're actually making money off of this now when Magic the Gathering was the original, cash cow for Wizards of the Coast. You owe it all to a fucking Netflix show that really just sort of aped your work and used it as a very loose basis for its own story. And you want to know how I know that? Because not only is that finally when your sales started to increase when that show took off, but you had to double down and create the re-release the Stranger Things module, which was really just the module they were playing in the opening scene of the first episode. But because you put Stranger Things on the packaging, it sold buku bucks. I mean, it took Netflix to basically Netflix, the same people that did Cuties, to pull you out of the hole of, oh man, this is just some nerdy niche white boy hobby. Bro, get fucked. I'm done. But those are just my opinions. Let me know yours in the comments down below, or let me know on X, where you can find me at BoltTheWord. And please do subscribe. I'm a nerdy news channel. I cover nerdy news every day. Very rarely about D&D, because frankly I'm fucking over it at this point, but this had to be said. But also, anime, movies, music, Magic the Gathering, you name it. Check me out on Instagram at wordsofparadise_Leon, and become a member for $4.99 a month. You can join the Discord, choose the articles I go over on a day-to-day basis, hang out with us on our Friday night live streams where I always have a guest and we do some deep dives, and of course, get in that chat with over 140 other vital idols. We're a bright, beautiful, glowing, vibrant community that I cannot wait to grow even further, because we do care about diversity, but only one kind of diversity. Diversity of thought. If that's interesting to you, join the Discord, hit subscribe, and until next time, it is all here in the Nerdosphere. This has been Words of Paradise.